Tonight on Be Something Wonderful, Jesus didn't calm the sea, he dissolved the disturbance. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and these are the studios of Be Something Wonderful, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, good evening and welcome back to the studios of Be Something Wonderful. Here we are in the Dutch Caribbean on the beautiful island of Bonaire with another powerful video for you today. This is a story of a subscriber. We did a video about her story some months ago where she manifested the reconciliation with her son. It was an estranged relationship of 4 years of no contact with her son, and how she manifested not only a reconciliation, but their family again, right? Traveling to see each other, they're close again. That was after 4 years, and we did a very powerful video on how she did that, right? Her recognition of her I amness, her as source. But we did a full-on video to show you that. Well, now she's at it again. She manifested the reunion of her son and his father, her ex-husband, in 10 days. We're going to show this today. After the son and father were estranged and not talking for 6 years. No contact. The son would reach out, but the father would not answer. His dad never, this is what she said, his dad never spoke to him and wanted nothing to do with him, even though my son had reached out to him a few times. I saw how he was hurting his son, and it made me angry. Hear this, she's angry at him. She said, then Jesus spoke. In other words, she got this download. This is the story where Jesus calmed the waters, right? Calmed the waters. We're going to talk about this, right? Where there was a storm and he was out in a boat with his disciples and he fell asleep. Your I am awareness falling asleep. In other words, the example of us not being unconscious, but being non-conscious of our true state as I am awareness from time to time, not recognizing that we are the power. So it was the story of Jesus falling asleep on the boat with his disciples. In other words, you as that I am awareness, remember, you play all the parts in these stories. That greater power within you, it's the idea of Jesus falling asleep is that power, that I am power that you are. That's not only within you, but that you are that power, is latent within you. It's in a state of latency. It's in that state of, it can be anything. But you're the operant power, as Neville Goddard would say. Otherwise, it's there. It's not unconscious. It's just, you're in that what Vadim Zeland in Reality Transurfing uses that word of non-conscious. In other words, it's within you. It's ready to activate. It's ready for you to recognize, to unify with. But many times we're so captivated by the conditions, these temporary circumstances, over-identifying with the conditions, that we allow that power to be asleep or latent within us without being the operant power of it. So it says right here, Jesus falling asleep on the boat with his disciples when a great windstorm arose. Waves were breaking over the boat. The boat was filling up with water. The disciples were in fear. Not faith, but fear. And they woke Jesus, that I am awareness, saying, don't you care that we're perishing? In other words, the disciples thought they're gonna die, right? They're gonna perish. It's that fear. Think about this. The fear of I am not, the fear of non-existence, which doesn't exist. It's that fear of I am not that version that I desire to be. I am not that ideal. I am not everything that I desire and want to be. That's what they were fearing. They weren't in the full faith of I am everything that I desire to be. So we're going to show this today. How did she do it? The waves were so turbulent that the disciples thought they were going to perish. This is what she wrote in her as she recognized this story and had this download. In other words, you're either in a state of fear of losing, they're in the state of fear of losing their lives, so that idea of I am not, versus the absolute faith of I am, no matter what the conditions or the waves crashing into the boat, the 3D conditions, the turbulent and disturbing conditions of the physical reality, no matter what they are. Right? She was even caught by the waves, right? Being angry. So you're either in the fear of losing it, the I am not, or in the absolute knowing that I am no matter what the conditions are. Even as Jesus awakes and says to them, his disciples, why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith? Like, what are you doing? Right? Don't you realize who you are? But Jesus didn't, here's the point she makes, and I think it's a powerful realization, what we're basing the lesson on today. Jesus didn't rebuke the water. In other words, he didn't rebuke the waves or the water and say, calm down to the water or the waves. She says, no, he rebuked the wind, that which was disturbing the water. Wow. In other words, the wind represents the unreality of I am not. The assumption that I am not that person I desire to be. The assumption of non-existence, which doesn't exist. The assumption of the impossible. Because there's only existence, there's only fulfillment, there's only love. He rebuked it. In other words, gave it no recognition, no authority, absolute denial of the idea that there is something opposing source, or all there is. The denial that there's a secondary source or secondary power. Wow. There's only one. I am God and there is no other. So he's rebuking that idea that there's some other God, there's some other power. That's what the wind represented, that there's some other source. The waves, on the other hand, are representing those doubts and fears that are created from that assumption, from the wind, in other words, of I am not. Wow. Big realization here. The sea or the water represents the Father, or the field of consciousness, the field of awareness, the sea of consciousness, the sea of awareness. The perfect still consciousness, the one absolute limitless power and source of all that is. It is still, and it's the peace that passes all understanding. It's never disturbed, it's never turbulent. Its nature is absolute stillness, limitlessness, latent power of that one reality. In other words, latent meaning it's all that is, waiting for you, waiting on for you as the operant power to declare I am. It's absolute perfect knowing. It's absolute perfect faith. Do you see? Either you're in fear of I am not or the perfect faith of I am, no matter what the conditions. Wow. It's never disturbed. It's that latent all power that you are. It's always within you. It's never about being unconscious. It's just in that state of latency as you're non-conscious and focused on the waves, but fearing that you're not going to be that person you want to be, that you're not going to manifest the things that you want and desire. Wow, that's powerful. Jesus, your I am awareness of self, your conscious self, it's the same. They are the same. I am my Father are one. I am my Father are one. Yet my Father is greater than I. It's the same awareness. The field is greater than I am, but I'm one with the field because I am the field. What did Jesus, as your I am awareness, do? He rebuked the wind and spoke to the waves or the water that were appearing turbulent and disturbed. Why? Why did he do that? This is what we're going to show you today. Because remember, the wind is that false source, that false idea that there's some other source, some other power, some secondary power outside of you as I am, the one and only reality. In Mark 4:39, this is told in Scripture, where you're waking up the latent power that you are. That's what represents Jesus, them waking Jesus up with these turbulent waters. Right? These conditions, these appearing disturbances, wake that latent power up within you to recognize that they're not real, they're not reality. You are. Wow. Asleep representing that non-conscious, not unconscious. Not unconscious, non-conscious. Disciples were simply non-conscious, forgetting their true nature. Then he arose, as you rise in that recognition of consciousness. I love the wording they use in Mark 4:39. Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, or the waves, peace be still. He rebuked the unreality. Rebuked it right out, denied its existence because non-existence is not possible. There's only existence. Non-existence doesn't exist. He rebuked it outright and spoke to consciousness, spoke to the Father, spoke to the field, the awareness that you are, you, commanding yourself as that consciousness. And the wind ceased and there was a great calm, of course, because you are reality. The wind represents the false idea, the non-truth, the unreality of the apparent outside forces or power or conditions controlling and determining your life. They're absolutely false. They don't control or determine anything. Some secondary source or cause or power outside of you and your I am awareness. It's all false. It's a false idea. It's the impossibility of non-existence, the impossibility of I am not, the unreality and non-truth or some outside forces pushing against your life is rebuked and denied any power and authority whatsoever. Just as Jesus, when he's in front of Pontius Pilate, you would and could have no authority, no power whatsoever, unless it's given from above. Jesus rebuked the wind, the idea that there's some other source than God and your I am awareness. Wow. Some other secondary power, secondary source, secondary cause. Wow, that's powerful. The waves then are doubt and fear were eternal or secondary conditions. We talked about that idea of secondary conditions. Source is first cause. Conditions are all secondary. These secondary disturbances or conditions caused by the patently false assumption of belief, the unreality of I am not. Non-existence doesn't exist. Jesus, I am, simply speaks the truth to the field, to the awareness, to that field of awareness or consciousness that you are, the sea or waves, peace be still. He doesn't rebuke that because that is the consciousness that you are. The fear and doubt are not source or cause of anything. They simply are disturbances or distortions of your true nature. Wow. Wow. Caused by the untruth of I am not that which I desire to be. Wow. Very powerful. This is what the subscriber said. The disturbance in the water is distorting the image I see. Wow. Yes, distorting the true image, that calm field of consciousness, the Father, the field of awareness, the all power and all reality that you are, it distorts that. In other words, the water, the source, or I am, is always perfectly still, reflecting its true nature. In other words, that stillness reflects you perfectly. It's only when it's disturbed, right, that we focus on those disturbances, that we get this distorted image of who we are in our reality. Wow. We're creating the disturbing reflection of people, events, and circumstances that appear negative or unwanted. But that's just the disturbance caused by some idea, whoa, windy tonight, some idea of some secondary source, a cause that doesn't exist. That wind of I am not is not reality. It's not the truth. And that's what manifests this idea of doubt and fear, of these waves, which is just consciousness, which is just a distortion of who you really are. It distorts or disturbs that perfect reflection, and that's caused by that false or untruth of I am not. Wow, very powerful. So the subscriber chose, in her words, to be a witness to the truth of this man's, this is her ex-husband, highest ideal. She chose to see the father of her son in his highest ideal. This is what she says: as I change myself from the ex-wife who was angry, the disturbance, right, the distortion, to the true witness of his highest ideal, within 10 days, yesterday, my son called me from work to say his dad reached out to see if they could get together. Both of them said, her dad and her son, it's all about love. It's just all about love. The past is irrelevant. After 6 years, they had not spoken. That shows you that latent power of I am is always there. Yet, it falls into that latency or that sleepy state when you're non-consciously focused on those disturbances, on those conditions that distort reality. Remember, when you absolutely deny any secondary cause, any secondary source but you as the one and only reality, I am God and there is no other, well then that cause of the disturbances cannot be there now, because there's no false secondary cause that seems to be creating them. Do you see it? They must be dissolved. Without cause, you cannot have effect. And if you have a false cause, you have a false effect. Wow. Hear that again. A false cause of some secondary source, the wind, causing a false effect of waves or disturbances. Without that false cause, you can't have that false effect. Wow. She rebuked the wind, the untruth of I am not, and spoke to her true nature, the sea, in other words, the field of consciousness that she is, seeing him through her highest ideal of I am. The waves and disturbances of doubt and fear are now deprived of that false cause. It must be still, must dissolve. You must now see the true nature of that awareness or that consciousness. Wow. I'm going to let this one sink in for you. This is powerful. Jesus didn't calm the water. He dissolved the disturbance. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and these are the studios of Be Something Wonderful here, right here in the Dutch Caribbean on the beautiful island of Bonaire. Until next time, we're going to have a big video coming out on the Tom Kearin channel. Be sure to see that. This is the manifestation of a particular powerful creator who manifested a specific person back into her life after 2 years of no content. And we came up with these 3 steps that she really did that were underneath this explanation about how she did it, which are very powerful. So simple, so powerful. Join us on the Tom Kearin channel for that. More coming here from Bonaire in the Dutch Caribbean. Stay with us with great love, with great light and infinite gratitude. This is Tom Kearin here in the studios of Be Something Wonderful. Until next time, we'll see you soon.